Hello everybody and welcome to today's webinar, today with HICX and Creactives, where we are discussing the question of best of breed technologies and specifically their role in digitization and transformation. So before I hand over to the panel, just a couple of administration points regarding the event today. All listeners are in listen-only mode for the duration of the discussion. The event is being recorded, so it will be made available afterwards. Now, we'd love to hear your thoughts and questions throughout the webinar, so please note there is a chat box. You'll see that to the right of the screen, in which you can put your questions, comments for the panel, and we do have dedicated time a little bit during the session and some time at the end as well. There is a bit of an interactive element to the event, so you'll also see in the same chat box the poll tab. When the time has come, the poll will appear in there with the instructions at that point. So, but now that's enough from me. It's time to turn the tables and hand the reins over to a practitioner to pose all the questions, those burning questions today. So for this session, I'm delighted to welcome Charlotte de Brabandt, who will be our guide and moderator for the next hour or so. So Charlotte, I'll hand over to you to introduce yourself and then let you get on and introduce the panel.
Thank you so much, Duncan. It's fantastic to be here today, especially with these two thought leaders. So my name is Charlotte de Brabandt, and I bring with this panel 20 years of procurement experience. I've worked across 3 continents and 5 industries, from automotive, timepieces, pharma, consumer goods, medical devices, and I have a great passion for tech and finding out, exploring more about this great topic. So I'm delighted to welcome Adriano and Costas today. Adriano, I would like to hand over to you. If you could start by introducing yourself a little.
Thank you, and very, very grateful to be part of this hour meeting. I'm Adriano Garibotto. I'm a Chief Sales Officer here in Creactives, but I am in the field of the procurement since many years, 25 years, and starting as a consultant and then going to the software space. So I hope that I will share some interest point of views and the evolution of the practice over the time for the audience.
Thank you so much for being here. And now Costas, same question goes to you.
Yeah, so hi everyone. Also delighted to be here. I'm Costas Xyloyannis and I'm co-founder and CEO at HICX. And I've also been in the procurement space some 20 years. It's been maybe a life endeavor building up HICX, but we evolved from the supplier data management space some 15 years ago. And this evolution now has taken us to the idea of supplier experience management platform, which for me is really about enabling suppliers to do their best work, but also to provide our customers with the best data, because I firmly believe that better experience leads to better data. So very excited to talk about this topic today.
Fantastic. So now, after we know who's actually in the panel, first question goes to Adriano. Adriano, could you explain a bit more about these trends that you are seeing in the market in terms of adoption of AI and deep learning solutions and how it really relates to best of breed? And maybe you could also elaborate, what are the reasons behind the shift?
Yeah. Yes, the consciousness about the quality of the procurement data is growing in the last 10 years, more and more and more and more. So in the first wave of the procurement transformation, all the focus were on the platforms, so in the software itself, so the process, so more on the process side than on the flow that goes inside of the process. And I use this metaphor many times. When you have the first evolution of an engine, okay, the first engines were possible to manage with petrol, like that, so nothing very refined. But right now, in the last years, with more and more sophisticated processes supported by those platforms, you require more sophisticated fuel. And the more sophisticated fuel is the quality of the data. And this consciousness is growing over the time. And right now we are in a momentum from that, because when you speak with the people in the procurement area, the consciousness about the necessity to have a quality in the data is crucial. And speaking about the best of breeds thing, is that because the quality is a complicated task, and you cannot be, let me say, omniscient. Okay, you cannot know everything about everything, because this is quite impossible. And there are specialized fields about the information and about what is quality, what means quality in specific fields. And so that drives to the fact that because the complexity is growing, also the best of breed concept is more adaptable, because the complexity means that you cannot be horizontal, you have to be focused. And the focus requires, obviously, best of breed approach. And in the other hand, also generalistic platform has realized that, transformed themselves to incorporate best of breed solutions in their solutions.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing. And Costas, in your opinion, why is a best of breed landscape vital to achieving the level of data quality needed, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think there are some interconnected topics in my view on this piece. So, best of breed for me drives better experience. And as I mentioned in the beginning, better experience will drive better data. And I think this view, by the way, is well established in more B2C worlds. Equally, if we think about it, as we heard just now from Adriano, we need quality data, and AI and ML will thrive off of this data. Now, the other thing maybe people aren't aware of, but I will add, is 80% of the time on AI and ML projects is spent on data cleansing. Now, how does best of breed come into this equation? Well, at least, and we can talk a lot about the supplier space where we're coming from in procurement. We've seen a lot of digital platforms for a lot of different processes. So again, complexity is growing. So you have now sustainability, and you think there's EcoVadis, Integrity Next, SEDEX. In the chemical industry, there's communities, right? There's communities for contingent workforce. These are all, for me, in a way, best of breed digital platforms. And what are they actually doing? Well, they're curating a lot of supplier data, which then companies need to operate their different processes, risk, are we compliant, all these things. So we have to have the realization that, number one, best of breed is helping us create a lot of great data in other areas. Now, what we also have to figure out, though, is how do we steward our suppliers across these different platforms? Because that's maybe the challenge which we're seeing is, yes, best of breed. We need these suppliers to navigate all these digital platforms, but is it now becoming a complicated experience? Which I come back to this idea. So now the thinking is we have to make the experience quicker, easier, because we need good data from our suppliers. And the easier we make it for them, the better data we have. The better data we have, the easier we can make it to get even better data. That's kind of how I see it. I think best of breed is playing actually quite a key role in the experience and in the curation of good data sets, which the industry is needing to operate on.
Fantastic answer. All right, so at this point, I suggest we're going to run a quick poll. And the question we have for the audience is your organization more end-to-end suite or more specialized best of breed? So over to the audience. And we'll just give it 5 more seconds for the audience to put in the answer. Great, wow. What a well-spread set of answers. Okay, I think that sums it up. Back to our panelists. How do you interpret these results that we are seeing at the moment?
So,
well,
go ahead, Adriano, but happy to chime in after.
I'm freezed, or do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, because my imagine is freezing. Yeah, so the situation is what I've said before. So, I mean, there is a little preference for the best solution, okay? But there are still people that are thinking that an end-to-end suite is the normal thing. So it's the classical distribution between the early adopters, conservative people, etc. But the movement for us is clear, and this pool demonstrate that clearly for me. Okay, yeah. So there is no doubts that we are going in that way.
Yeah, and maybe to add, I mean, what we've seen, so these results aren't a huge surprise. We're seeing a trend towards best of breed, but in reality, this is kind of a wave which is happening now, and you see it by industry. So we see a lot of FMCG, CPG kind of consumer-facing industries, which have, let's say, quite mature procurement supply chain. They're moving very quickly to best of breed, whereas you see more traditionally, let's say, indirect focused businesses, where procurement, I would say, was also more siloed rather than having a more cross-functional mandate. They're still happy in the suite, right? Because again, procurement is quite siloed. The suite can work quite well. As soon as you go very cross-functional end-to-end and you incorporate quality and manufacturing and supply chain and sustainability and risk and all these other kind of departments, you very quickly realize that a suite no longer caters to all your business requirements. But you can understand hesitation also in some of this data when we interpret it, because it is new for a lot of companies to go best of breed, right? The philosophy has been suites for a long time, and suddenly you see all these resurgence of best of breed tools. People are still not sure, do we do it, do we not? Is our IT team ready for this? Are we politically ready for this kind of things? So you can sense that hesitation also in the results.
Thank you for sharing, Costas and Adriano. And Adriano, next question goes to you, just to elaborate further. You've said before that large multinational corporations need to embrace the AI revolution and to unlock the value of relevant and structured data stored in the ERPs. Could you give more information about this and the problems you see which we may be facing?
Yes, the point is that most of the information about what has happened in the near past, last month or last year, and are managed inside of the ERPs, etc., most of the relevant information is unstructured. So what you buy is most of the time described in the descriptions of the purchase orders. So the analysis that you have to do is based on the human being approach. Someone has to read what is written there, elaborate things, and think about what you can do with this information. So imagine large multinational companies with hundreds of people that are contributing to create purchase order each day, everyone in his own language, in his own way to say, etc. It's an incredible quantity of data, variable ways to say the same thing in different languages or in the same languages with different words, and especially with some constraints that are coming from the backend system. So the backend systems allows you to use, for example, the most important one, SAP. So if you want to create a purchase order, you have only 40 characters that are written there in the short description, and the people has an unlimited fantasy how to fill how much information is possible on those 40 characters. And this requires a lot of knowledge in the mind of the reader to be properly understood. So doing it manually is impossible. And this is the reason why artificial intelligence comes to the stage in this specific area. So if you want to really have a real understanding about what is going on at line level in your procurement, in your stock management, in your processes, you need to know exactly what you are buying. And to do so massively in large corporation, artificial intelligence is the only option. There's no options available other than the artificial intelligence. So this is the approach that is correct today. was not possible 5 years ago, because this required a lot of computing capability, but right now it's possible. And this is the reason why this is gaining a momentum. So we are very close to achieve this kind of capability available for everyone, and it could be a game changer, is a game changer for the early adopters. So we have clients, obviously, that are already running this kind of solutions, not from last year, but maybe from 5 years, and they are really have the possibility to account the advantages that they have taken from this revolution in terms of digitization of the procurement processes.
What a brilliant answer. Costas, what's your take on the quality of data in ERPs or suites, and why are traditional solutions so limiting when it comes to wider corporate initiatives?
Yeah, so I think, by the way, quality of data, we always have to think of what data we're obviously talking about. And I agree with Adriano, if we're talking about cleaning up things like orders and materials and all of these topics, it's impossible to do this without AI and ML. Now, if I dig into kind of my domain around supplier data, I think that's obviously the kind of foundation which a lot of processes run on. What you find, even in large companies, there's still fundamentals which are broken. And to give you a simple little example, things like sourcing, contracts, and kind of my core P2P stuff, even in a suite like Ariba or Coupa, these would be mostly 2-3 different vendor masters, right? So, and they're actually not connecting to one another. So what you find is even fundamentals which you'd think would work are not there, right? So first thing to note is, one system does not equate no silos, right? Because even within one system, we could have silos. So for us, it's a quality of data is more like a governance topic rather than a system topic. And people need to look at things a bit differently rather than looking at a suite or ERP to manage all the data. They need to think that they manage transactions, but things like my supplier master data, what they're realizing is my contract system, my transacting system, my quality system, they work with different parts of the supplier, right? I could do sustainability at a parent company. I will sign a contract at a legal entity. I will transact at an address of the supplier. So you could have these entities in these solutions, but they're different parts of the supplier. So in reality, what you find is companies have not been able to connect them because they're actually, yes, same supplier, but different parts of the supplier. So this has led to a very poor foundation in terms of data has been our experience. So it's not been a good place, and they find it like a challenging environment to move ahead from that.
I can definitely agree with that. And Adriano, next question goes to you. What advice would you give to those who are coping with sleepless nights around integration of different best-of-breed solutions into the landscape?
First advice, don't fear. The technology is here to support. So there is no interest from the technology to make the things complex. That make the things simple is indeed a core focus for all the providers like we are, HICX and Creactives in the best of breed space. We are very focused on make possible that the implementation is not a problem at all. Okay, and the technology obviously is supporting us because this is not only a movement regarding the procurement space, fortunately, is a movement that regards practically all the solutions on the IT space. So the possibility to integrate things together to make possible that the things works together properly have already foundations in global architectures that are used around the world. And so the old equation, there was in the 60s, I'm old enough, an old way of saying that nobody has been fired because they bought IBM, So, and this was an old say to say, okay, we stick on the traditional approach and that's it, because this is without problems. As this is not anymore true. Okay, so the approach could be as much as tailor-raised on you as possible, without the fear that you are complicating the things. No, you are not complicating the things at all, because you are really getting the value you are looking for. That is more important. So the feasibility of the solutions are more and more easy to achieve with a combination of solutions that are best of breed instead of vice versa, because you can tailor the solution in the way you want. And on the other hand, regarding the cost, it's not true that the cost is less, because for the same reason. So there is a movement towards platformization, and also the platforms are really interested to achieve automation in the process to incorporate the best of breed solutions inside of the platform. They are interested to do so, because they have realized that they are not able to follow each niche of specialization at the best in the way that the best of breed can do.
Thank you so much. And Costas, what's your view on this?
Yeah, by the way, I would echo what Adriano has said here, in the sense that I think the market has definitely moved on in terms of tech capability, right? People are building their solutions with the idea of APIs in mind. And I also believe that in general, why also best of breed is good, it will also drive more standardization and interoperability over time, right? The more demand there is for a best of breed landscape, the more it drives providers to look for standardization and interoperability. And I think people are keen on that, right? They don't want to be doing everything anymore. Now, I do think, for sleepless nights, it is a valid concern where people are probably coming at it from historically. A lot of companies have ended up in so-called best of breed. But for me, that was more randomly buying solutions and then saying, oh, look, we have all these specialist solutions, we're best of breed. Of course, this is not a best of breed strategy, right? This is randomly buying point solutions. So you have to plan for it. You have to think, what is that data foundation, right? How am I going to deal with all these things? And then you actually realize it's probably not as bad as we think, so long as we plan for it, right? Not just randomly buy software, because again, your IT team will probably not be too happy with you either there.
Fair point. Next question goes to Adriano again. Establishing a single source of truth for inventory or suppliers is important. But what value does having the single source of truth for inventory unlock?
Yeah, so the inventories, especially spare part inventories in complex industries, has been always a nightmare. And the reason is that the original systems are not really able to manage, like Costa said before. So you can have a single ERP system, and maybe you have different silos of information inside. So the point is that the way that the transactional systems manage this kind of thing is transactions. So they record transaction and that's it. So unlock the value there is crucial, because if you can do that, you can realize very quickly that you can reduce your inventories, you can manage better your inventories. And speaking about ECG problems, for example, you can really have a real understanding about in which way, for example, you can reduce your CO2 footprint. How you can do that if you really don't know what you have inside your inventories, and which is the carbon footprint of the things you have there. How you can collect the contribution of your suppliers about the reduction of your carbon footprint if you don't have a real understanding about what you have inside of your inventories. Yeah. So it's all connected. It's not something that something goes in one direction and another. No, we live in a world of connection, and more each new requirement, like ECG, policies will require more and more interconnected information. And that is possible starting from the basement, and the basement is good data, nothing else. So it's like the foundation of everything. And this is exactly the space where we as Creactives, HICX, you are working hardly on that, because for example, the approach of HICX regarding suppliers, etc., is a top-down approach with a lot of information coming from different sources to risk, etc., etc. And we have a contribution from bottom-up. So what you are really buying from that supplier. And so you can imagine how powerful is this combination of information, where you have definitely all what you need to know about the supplier, but also what you exactly are buying from those suppliers. And so replanify, redefine your stocks, and reduce your carbon footprint, et cetera, et cetera.
Wonderful. And Costas, same question goes to you. A single source of truth for suppliers. What's the value here?
Yeah, I think, by the way, there's probably a lot of different value drivers we could look at, but ones which come to mind is the top one initially is going to be for sure efficiency. So having a single source of truth makes you far more efficient. If you think about many systems using supplier data, there's a lot of redundancy in the process. There's a lot of error, little things like, what does accounts payable have to do? What if I can't find certain information? Or with COVID, one of the real value drivers, which we also noticed, was, do you know who to contact at the supplier, right? How will I actually get information? A lot of people have the wrong data in their ERPs, right? They have an ordering or a accounts payable email. Obviously, this is not who you're going to get a response, right? And if you think of a lot of ESG initiatives, what is driving, collecting data from suppliers? Well, you need accurate contact information. People forget it, but all of these kind of initiatives actually thrive off of these single sources of truth, right, to be able to do them efficiently. Other areas are going to be around things like control. You have much better control with a single source of truth. How our bank account changes happening, right? Do we know where the goods we're receiving from are coming from? So all of these things become much, much easier. And also things like new insights, right? When you can connect the data, you can look at, how do I benchmark my different organizations? How do I connect the dots? So for me, it's kind of vital, if you want to operate efficiently at scale, to have a single source of truth, right? I think it's very difficult otherwise to run digital initiatives or automation without having that foundation.
Fantastic. Adriano, what are the further benefits of having both a single source of truth for inventory and for the suppliers? Do you think that they maybe interrelate?
Yes, definitely. There is a lot of problems regarding the association between what you buy and the suppliers itself. So in the processes to manage the suppliers base or to try to connect with new suppliers, it's crucial to know what you're really buying. But unfortunately, the categorization that is the main driver to classify the suppliers based on your on the custom taxonomy. So every company has his own way to categorize what they have in the inventories, etc. And so this immediately drives to the problem that the top-down categorization that is normally done using the traditional approaches are a little bit weak. And for weak, I mean generic. So the risk you have here is that not knowing exactly the categories you are buying, your processes are inefficient because maybe you are inviting to new sourcing processes people that are not able to answer to you. And maybe you are losing the possibility to invite those ones that could be the good ones for you. And it's the same during the processes to discover new suppliers. So the fine-grained categorization based on what the supplier really can provide is an enabler factor of this. So it's not only about knowing what you have, but knowing also who is able to provide what you have or what you will have in the future. So it's a magic combination here between these two. I always said bottom-up approach and top-down approach. So it's not something that is in opposite, are really things that are converging to the, let me say, to the optimum, okay? So to the perfect combination where it's possible to optimize the processes. And this is what maybe Costa is mentioning as a single base of the truth, okay? A single version of the truth. Is correct, it's exactly that. But it's not only the single version of the truth, it's the single complete version of the truth, may I add. So, because the completeness is crucial. You cannot deal with incomplete data, because incomplete data at the end of the day drives not to the optimum at all.
Now, maybe I would also add in terms of inventory and supplier data, so bringing material and supplier together, what we've seen here is it's vital when you look at things like carbon footprinting, when you need to do traceability kind of things like conflict minerals and those kind of industries. When you want to do supply chain mapping, going deeper into the supply chain, these are all processes where it actually has to be supplier and material information together. So they are kind of key enabler for a lot of these other, I would say, traceability and footprint in related topics. It's crucial to succeed on those kind of things.
Absolutely. And Adriano, what are the benefits in terms of the experience for suppliers, and why is it so important? For
suppliers, I think that it's important to make a contribution in this improvement of the data. For example, artificial intelligence can support them to better categorize themselves inside of the portals of the client. So more and more with the platform, there is the possibility for suppliers to onboarding themselves inside of those platforms. And then, for example, it's required that you provide by yourself a categorization inside of the thing of the potential client has. But taxonomies are complex. Think about the one thing. So if we want to use a standard taxonomy that is more and more adopted as a standard worldwide, I'm speaking about UNSPSC, okay? That many people in the audience may know. But UNSPSC last version is a 4-level taxonomy. The last version in the 4th level, so in the most deepest level, we're speaking about more than 160,000 different categories. This is the number, 160,000. So as you can imagine, select the right one. So you say, okay, I want to go through the list. Say, well, this one is the correct one. Okay, that's a nightmare. And there is a higher probability that you will make a mistake. And the mistake will be obviously the consequences I said before. So you will not be invited, you will not, or will not be chosen because you are simply not recorded the right category. So here is a place where artificial intelligence give you a big role. So we have the possibility that you type what you are really able to offer in terms of service or goods, and the system suggests you, oh, look, these 5 categories, only 5. One of these 5, 95% of the cases is the one in this short list. One of the 5 is the one that you have to choose. This dramatically changed everything because the people can automatize processes that today are very hard, in one hand side, and in the other hand side, you can, let me say, be sure that you get the value that you want to get, both sides, from the supplier side and from the client side, because we are sure that we are speaking the same language, because the artificial intelligence in that specific case, as an example, make possible to harmonize the way of thinking of people that has no connection. With different words, with different way of saying, with different knowledge, etc. But the artificial intelligence transformed this moment in a harmony that was not present before.
Very well said. Costas, next question is for you. Why does an organization investing in really the best of breed technology solution provide the best supplier experience? And maybe you can also share some examples that you've seen in practice.
Yeah, so I think few things here, but first of all, you'll have access to best practice know-how, and I think Adriano explains it well. If you think of Creactives and someone who's researched the topic of a user entering a description, which then they've thought about it so much, which will easily classify it across 160,000 items. Now that's best of breed for you. Imagine if you're buying it from a suite. Obviously, the suite will not have invested so much in just one very little use case, right? Entering a description to classify it. Okay, and that for me is just a phenomenal example, right? You get this kind of detailed thinking around a particular problem, which you will not have by a suite, right? So a lot of customers, why are they doing it? Well, they get access to this kind of innovation, but equally it will be the best experience. So when you ask how is this creating the best experience, obviously to write what I think is a much easier experience than to select from a list of 160,000, right? But there are things to consider to create kind of a good BOB experience. And things we're seeing, by the way, in practice is, have you thought about single sign-on for your suppliers, right? People aren't considering these kind of practicalities. You need to think about it. Have you thought about the data foundation for these systems to avoid redundant entry and maintenance of vendor data, right? You have to have these things. Now, examples we're also seeing is like, BOB is very common now for contract management. People are buying that outside of the suite. Sourcing optimization, right? This is not something you have to do frequently or for many categories. We're even seeing some services where you pay per event, by the way, right? Because you don't do complex sourcing optimizations every single day. So that's a great use case of best of breed, particularly if you use it once in a while. We're also seeing that there's best of breed also in selecting payment networks, right? One may use Tungsten or Tradeshift or Ariba, depending on their regional footprint. So they might use one network in Latin America, a different network in Japan, a different one in Europe, right? So that, again, for me is best of breed of payment networks. You're going which has the best presence in that region, because that is what is important for a payment network, is which suppliers are already connected. And no one is the same level globally, right? So again, you see a very clear example why companies would want to use best of breed, because if the penetration is better in one country or another, they will have much better compliance, right? There's no reason why they have to use one payment network.
Absolutely. Adriano, I would like to continue with you. Or Duncan, I see you quickly popped on.
I did.
Maybe you have an update in terms of, are there any questions that we have from the audience?
No, I was just going to give the reminder, actually. So there's no live questions, but if you do have a question that's burning for our best of breed experts, do put it into the chat box, and we will come to those a little bit later on. I know there has been some conversation also around the poll that we have done. So we've done a couple of these, actually. So for people who are interested, we can aggregate all of those results from various different sessions, and actually we will share the overall results of that. But yeah, no live questions at the moment, so do pop those into the chat box.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So definitely go ahead and ask your questions. Until then, we will continue, and I'll continue with Adriano. In your opinion, how does investing in AI and deep learning help digitization?
Yeah, I think that is an enabler factor, because digitization means so it's not only to use a computer. So if you use a computer like a typewriter, you are not doing digitization at all. Okay. No, sorry to be so basic, but this is really the case. I mean, there is a lot of things that are simply transactions made by by transactional systems that is like using the computer like an intelligent typewriter, but no more else. So digitization means, in my opinion, make possible that boring activities or activities that are doing by humans in a repetitive way, or that concern the humans because are a little bit complicated, not from the, for example, the example I made before about the selection of the right category within 160,000 categories. This is not really something complicated at all if you have a lot of time. Obviously, you can go through and you try to select by manual, etc., etc. But what is the end? At the end is a selection of the right category. So here is the way that artificial intelligence can support the end user to speed up processes that are normally getting a lot of time with an unpredictable quality of output. And then artificial intelligence come to the stage to support the end user to make the day-by-day life easier, and in the same time get better results from that processes that normally today they have a lot of errors and then drives towards other problems. Because taking also, again, the examples of the categorization, all the processes of procurement from the purchase requisition to the reports in your artificial intelligence system will depend on the category. So if you have the wrong category, everything goes wrong. So the budget allocation is the wrong one. The category manager that will take charge of your purchase requisition will be the wrong one. And finally, the reports based on that categorization will be wrong one. And then your C-level will take wrong decisions because the reports are wrong. So the impact could be huge, even if the problem is little. Then this is the way where we see that artificial intelligence play a big role because can support humans, and the humans can be concentrated, the human being can be concentrated in the real value activities. There is a lot of real value activity. Think about how much time procurement people spend creating reports or cleaning data to create good reports, and how much time more they would have at disposition to create value instead to create reports. I think that is more useful to get value from the reports than vice versa. The report is not the value. The reports is the value is in which way you exploit the data contained, the good data contained in the report. So it's a transformational approach. So procurement has to think about that, because in the future, the organization based on the traditional category management approach will be not anymore there. There will be a big transformation, and this transformation is based on the fact that artificial intelligence can support it. So embrace it, make possible to design the future instead to wait and see. There's no more time to wait and see. You have to act.
And act now. Thank you for this incredibly strong answer. Costas, what's your view on the role of best breed, how it plays in the field of digitization?
Yeah, I think best of breed has obviously been a big disruptor in digitization and almost a byproduct, right? So one disrupts the other. But for me, the kind of, I guess, benefit best of breed is bringing to digitization, I think it is adding a lot of innovation, right? And it gives you options of digital platforms to adopt. I think if you've seen some of the reports, particularly in procure tech and supply chain tech, apparently it's the biggest investments for the VC community outside of fintech. So you're definitely getting a lot of innovation, and I think that is critical to digitization. The other part is, because you're having more best of breed, I think this is going to drive more interoperability and standardization, which I also think is very beneficial for digitization and automation in general across platforms, right? The more standardization and interoperability you have, the easier it just is to reuse things in a more efficient manner. So I think that will play a big kind of driver. speed and agility, right? If you think of companies, the historical mantra of spending a few billion on an ERP system, you are very locked in. Best of breed now is given some room for breathing for a lot of companies, thinking that at least if something doesn't work, I can, take that out without disturbing my whole ecosystem. And I think best of breed is also a contributor to better data. And I think this is also key for digitalization, right? So for me, it's the disruptor in the disruption, but I think we're having as you have more digital platforms, this is also pushing the boundaries of digitalization and more automation.
Wonderful. And now we come to one of my favorite topics, Adriano. In terms of the future of procurement, we have been talking for years about transformation. And maybe you can explain here more, what do we mean here and what should the vision of transformation be?
Connected to the previous question, we see that procurement is a data-driven activity. There is no way to escape from that logic. And because it's a data-driven activity, the analysis of the data will be the main topic. So the organization of the processes will be more a sort of layer where people are able to analyze data, and not only the past, but figure out what will come in the medium period and the short period, et cetera, et cetera. So taking in consideration risk, et cetera, about the supply chain of the client, the possible disruptions, et cetera, and then a layer of tactical buying, so transactional things. The below layer will be more and more automatized in the future. So more the quality data flows in, more is possible that those processes will be automatized, totally automatized, eventually at the end of the process. But the layer on top will remain. The layer on top will be the final end of this story, where is the connection between the internal movements of the company and the needs that they are changing. So the role procurement is speaking about, people are speaking about themselves from a long year. So it's 20 years that they speak on top of them, how the procurement activity is transformed, how the evolution, how we can get more visibility inside of the organization, how we can get more, how we can put more value, et cetera, et cetera. But it's all related with that. So procurement is the connection between the outside and the inside in the inflow of goods and services that has to be transformed for the company to provide to their clients solutions and so on and so forth. So this is a boundary, is crucial to defend and to define this boundary very clearly, also to make possible partnerships. So we're speaking a lot about partnerships, how to transform suppliers in partners and things like that. But what that means really? That really that you share information, and you have to share information that has to be understood clearly both sides. So quality of the data, again, so it's the fluid through the engine that I mentioned at the beginning of the process. So if you want to get there with this new organization, with the new vision of what the procurement would be in the near future, and I'm speaking about near future, I'm not speaking about 5 years or things like that. I'm speaking about 1, 2, 3 years, terms, not more, because the transformation is already going on, no? And now is the time, as I said before. It's urgent.
Costas, any view you would like to share here?
I like a lot of what, by the way, Adriano said. I think procurement is a data-driven activity, and to be honest, it's going to be more and more. And with digitization, I think you're going to see like what people call an autonomous or lights-out procurement. Some of that is some time away, but definitely the tactical stuff, you're already seeing it, right? There's a lot of automated sourcing, which can even be done, automated contracts, particularly in very well-defined categories. So what we're seeing and kind of the shift is going to be more around realizing other initiatives like ESG, like risk, but also realizing that you're not going to deliver, climate change as a company on your own. It will be with your supply chain, right? So we see a lot is, procurement's been optimizing within the four walls, right? But they've done everything. They've saved, they've put contracts under management. There's only so much you can squeeze. Now for me, it's, well, we got to operate outside the four walls, be even more data driven. So how are we doing this? It's going to be in strong partnership now with our suppliers. But really, for me, the philosophy is procurement has to be thinking, how do I set up my suppliers for success? And how do I help them set up their suppliers for success? Right? Because you've optimized internally. There's only so much optimization you can do. You have to go outside your four walls. I think that's going to be kind of the shift is you'll see internal, tactical, traditional P2P procurement that will be fully automated. It'll be more around the supply chain, data, how we use this data to drive more automation and value. But that's going to come by removing the friction from how we operate with our suppliers. Hence why, we believe that experience and experience management is the next kind of evolution for procurement transformation, in my opinion.
100% agree. Definitely. Also from all my years, it's now time to work together in partnership. I would like to use this opportunity to just go back to Duncan and ask whether any questions have come in the meanwhile.
Yeah, so we have one question that's come in, which is we've heard a lot around standardization and interoperability and also getting data foundations right. But could you elaborate a bit more around best of breed solutions and data governance specifically? That's not directed to anybody, but that's the question.
To take that initially, but our view is that you should have best of breed following kind of a data foundation. So if we think around data governance, ideally you should try and do that centrally for master data, right? And then distribute it somewhere so it's consistent. Where you're actually creating transactions is less important so long as you can attach it to the correct, accurate master data. So our view here for success in best of breed is, shared foundation for master data, what you report against, but you can have a federated approach for best of breed systems also, which are raising the transaction. And this will allow simple integration and reporting in terms of connecting the dots, even if they happen in separate solutions.
If I may, another element on this story is related with artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence made possible a sort of democratization of the process. So normally when I want to address the topic about governance, okay? So governance has been always foreseen as a top-down approach. So there are some that set the rules and there is an organization that controls the applying of the rules and things like that. So this is the kind of governance we intend. And it has to be in that way because the quality of the data has to be consistent. And with an old-fashioned approach, for example, speaking about material master data or service master data, etc. So there is someone that is controlling what you are doing, or maybe a specific team that is controlling that if you are doing properly, if you are trying to create something duplicates, etc., etc. So this can be completely changed by the artificial intelligence. You do not need any more of those processes because artificial intelligence can take care about that and can support you in the creation of the new data, if you will, complete, etc., etc. And if you do not need, because artificial intelligence can suggest you very quickly that maybe this item already exists somewhere and you are not aware. So the artificial intelligence can transform the organization in an incredible way in that way. So imagine big companies. We know a lot of big companies that have specific offices where maybe in low-cost countries, the people that are trying to do the things like a typewriter. Yeah. So And this is completely something that I think that will disappear in very short time period, thanks to democratization of the process. So we are consistent because we are applying the same rules, even if we don't know each other's, but because there is a layer on top that address those topics automatically and consistently over the time.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And at this stage, I would I accept, Duncan, if there's another question.
Yeah, so we've got one final question, and I know we've only got 3 minutes, so I'm not sure. This is a big topic, this one, so I don't think we can cover it in the 3 minutes. But there is a question around the level of intervention of the IT department, specifically in the area of data governance implementation. I don't know who wants the challenge of that in 30 seconds, but...
If I try 40 seconds, only 40 seconds, I would say we are focused on trying to reduce as much as possible the involvement of the infrastructure. So we know that IT department has very complex topics to deliver, and so the intervention of the solution of the best of breed has to be light. Light as much as possible. Okay, I don't see for free, but light as much as possible. And because they are addressing specific business problems, I suggest IT people that has to have, let me say, the good willing to hear carefully what the business needs. Because sometimes IT tends to be obviously so overwhelmed about all the things that they have to do. They say, okay, now another problem to my desk, please not. But
data is a business topic, not an IT topic. Historically, IT is solving it because they want to fix a problem of business users complaining about an IT system because of bad data, right? And of course, IT then has to own this challenge because if not, the system will not be adopted. But definitely data is a business topic. Close partnership with IT, you need them. But data has to be owned and managed by the business. In my opinion, IT partners to help a successful IT project and how it lands in the IT architecture and strategy.
Well, look, fantastic. What I'll do now is I will wrap up so that we can finish right on top of the hour, just on time there. So first of all, thanks, Costas, and thanks, Adriano, for joining us on the panel today. But special thanks to Charlotte for being the voice of the practitioners today. That was absolutely fantastic. And thank you for putting those questions to the panel. And obviously, thank you to everybody who's listened in today and commented and sent in your questions. So final reminder, the recording of this will be made available. If you want more information, you can see that on creactives.com or HICX.com. So thank you very much, everybody.
Bye-bye. Have a good day. Thank you, all of you. Ciao.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Bye.